Peace, what's good? It's Naughty, aka Thank God Is Hope. I had to come on here because I just left the movie theater watching Sinners, and there were so many things that came out at me, and I'm like, oh, I wish I just would have pressed record as soon as I was sitting there. But let's talk about the facts. When your wife is trying to cover you, here, wear this, protect yourself with this, you better motherfucking listen. Okay. Listen, sometimes y'all don't be believing that the things that she's giving you actually works, and you may not be a believer of it. But just like your grandmother and your moms was praying, you gotta know that your wife is doing the same exact thing. Okay? That movie is so impactful. And yes, I'm giving spoilers because I do not care. So at the end, when his brother was trying to turn him into a vampire, and that protection was around his neck, and he couldn't, no matter what, nothing could permeate that protection. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that there are things that people may give us and gift us. And ooh, I promise you, earlier that day, I was like, ooh, I should go into the Goodwill. I didn't even know that Goodwill was over here. And I was just driving by and I was like, ooh, they always say like you should be careful about the items that you're thrifting because you don't know the kind of energy that it takes on. That was a perfect example of the energy that it takes on. If somebody saw that on the side of the road and recognized that it looked like a piece of necklace and they just put it on their neck, they have no idea if that could go for or against them. Do you understand? They always used to say like you could pray for the things that you are wearing or so that you are seeking out a hedge of protection, however that may view and however that may be. But I promise you, if it's not meant for you or your bloodline, it will not be protected. Okay? Okay. So another message that I got is you really can't trust white people. Sorry, respectfully, but not really because I don't, it is what it is. I don't know if I would ever feel protected in an all black space and then being a white woman coming into that space, like that uncomfort, I'm going to feel it. And immediately they're like, no, she's family. She's only family because she was fucking the folk. Do you understand? But at the end of the day, she's like, they're gonna trust me to go out and talk to them because I look like them. And while that may be true, she came back in with the okey doke. So that was another thing. You cannot trust your oppressors. I understand that she had a slither and slick of black, but do that slither and slick of black show in your every single day activities? And at the end of the day, I have to side with my people. Now, with the Pope possibly becoming black, and knowing that that is against our people, I'm not really sure how we're going to work this one out. You really have to sit and sit and sit and really sit with yourself through meditation. Allow your third eye to permeate and really guide you on this next couple of years because there's some shit that's going to be out and about. And I'm not really sure if you're going to feel or be protected by it because we're in like modern day Sodom and Gomorrah in my head. And while they were using the Bible in this movie, again, it was a form of oppression. And it made me, I know this sounds so crazy because I feel like sometimes I be on like the fence with my own self, but it really made me want to put down all things oppressed or all things oppressed. Do you understand? Like it made me want to put down everything that they gave us, even the tracking device that I'm recording on. It just really made me want to have a choice. And that was always my argument from day one. Now, this whole message may not be about sinners, it's just me spitting free. But at the end of the day, I have said multiple times, like we've never been given a choice between being indigenous or colonialist. And because they have came and decided to choose us as slaves and not indentured servants, or to say like, hey, they could work in our palace, and usually back in those days, they worked for a certain amount of years to pay off a certain amount of debt. So if I knew that I owed $5,000 to my oppressor, I would work for 5 to 7 years, and if I'm able to pay off that debt, now I'm free. That wasn't that situation with pigment. You understand? Like when it came to our people and enslaving them, they knew that they were a little bit more stronger, a little bit more physically stronger in appearance as a Black man, especially that they could handle, lifting, picking, sweating, all that kind of stuff that our ancestors endured. And what's so interesting? There were fields and fields of cotton fields, and this was out in Mississippi. And I even think about the laws that were reenacted this past year with Mississippi for Jim Crow, energy. And just recognizing that a lot of this stuff is still very alive today. Being able to go to Alabama in the 90s and then going again during 2020 and seeing that, sure, much may have changed on the outer appearance because everything is desolate and dead. But that doesn't mean that the people who oppressed us still don't own that land. Their bloodline may own the land. We may not own the land. And even if you are buying that land, can you sense the energy there? I was supposed to go buy a property there, and it was actually like a tire shop. And um, long story short, so I don't pull out anybody business in the street like that. There was just a slab of land that just rubbed me the wrong way on that property. And I was like, what was this? So they started shimming and shining, telling me about the RV ports that were supposed to be there and how there's always a festival in the town and you can make money from it by renting out each port for the RV hookups. It went on to this, and except for the point of what I asked, what was there? Do you understand? And you have to remember, I'm coming in as a Black woman. I have another Black woman, Hispanic woman with me, and I'm talking to a white man whose land probably has been in his family for a whole time. So recognizing that now I'm across the tracks, there is a big house, there are small little outhouses. You have to think about all of these types of scenarios. And I think because so many people are afraid to go past the Mason-Dixon line to the South, coming from New York and all, or just never even living in the South, you really don't feel your ancestors' energy until you have that energy on you. Do you know? So realizing that that land was actually a cotton gin, I knew what I felt. And ironically enough, before I got there and actually fell asleep, I had one little spliff outside in the middle of the street. And I was sitting there, and there was a graveyard across from me. And this lady was like, "It's a hot day. Are you taking a rest? Come out of her fucking house." And I was like, "Yeah, it is hot." But I'm smoking a spliff looking at the graveyard like, I need to ask my ancestors to protect me while before I even go to sleep here. Because I already know there's some shit here. I could feel it intuitively. And I'm like Michael B. Jordan, wife who gave him the protection around his neck. Sure, we may not understand everything that's about to go into this mojo bag, but you just have to know that you will be protected. A lot of us have prayers from our ancestors that are keeping us alive today. And that was basically what she was saying to him. And you know what? He probably gave her a fuss and fight about that daggone mojo bag, but that thing was wrapped around his neck. Like he just had to open up his jacket a little bit and that shit was there. Like it wasn't even under the shirt, it was here. Do you understand? So it's like when you are protected by entities and forces and guides, angels, ancestors, whomever you may deem that higher power, just know that it is truly blessed and protected. Kendrick Lamar, was coined for saying like, my grandmother ain't praying for me anymore because she not here anymore. And this is where people who are in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s, if you got that ancestral wisdom, sure, that pain of your ancestor, your mother, your father, whom your auntie, your uncle, grandparent, whomever that was that intercessor for you, because the veil is thin and it is thinner than it will ever be. If this sky crack open, bro, you think this movie is fabricated about vampires? You think that's all that you're gonna see? I'd rather see a vampire than some shit that look like something described in Revelation. And probably some of y'all don't even have no idea what I'm talking about when I say that. You got people with seven eyes and several wings and eyes all over their bodies or wings all over their bodies, or things that may be half and half, given Sagittarius energy. You don't know how that looks. So you need to be protected and have a hedge of protection around you. You think that you got a sword or a coat of arms or maybe some wooden or garlic, as this movie depicted. Sure, we know how to defeat our enemies, but the problem is we're not equipped with the knowledge to defeat them. I see posts all the time like, hey, you shouldn't live with people. And I'm like, we really need to get back to the opposite because if some shit pop off, what you gonna do? It's just gonna be y'all two in the whole house, not protecting the whole house by yourself with y'all kids who you gotta protect. Make it make sense. As much as I like to be a loner, I benefit from living with other people at times. And especially if there's a king in the house. Do you understand? Like, we need to really remember that we need one another. And sure, we're a human race, but we also have to remember who is for us. Can you remember the language that they were speaking? Because remember, they was opening up the door from homeboy, I forgot his name. I just remember him from 8 Mile, Cheddar Biscuit, something like that it was. Homeboy who was security at the juke joint bar, right? And he outside and he talking a language. So if he's asking permission and come inside, you have to know that there are laws. There are laws that protect us from certain environments. And the only way that these laws can be permeated is if you give them permission. If I did not give you permission to affect me spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, however you think that you're about to affect me, that shit is not happening. You have to ask permission. 9 times out of 10, y'all giving out permission to the wrong type of entities because she got a peen and a poom. That's not what I meant to say, but some of y'all like that. Oh, it's too far. Didn't I say it was Sodom? That's not what I meant. But that could go for both people. You know what I mean? Like men and women, women and men. And I get that some of y'all be queer, but cheese and rice, that's not what I meant. Lord, missing. So yeah, pause button. All right, so I'm back. I had to go have a conversation with ChatGPT because I feel like sometimes I speak in parables and I really want everybody to understand what I'm saying when I say this. This movie is about a revolution. It is about us breaking a generational curse called the Bible. It is about us breaking free from being institutionalized to becoming free as fuck. There's no other way to put it. This is really about mental freedom. And it made me think about how my parents wanted me to be a doctor, a lawyer, someone who made 6 figures in their day, who was what they deemed to be esteemed. And Caribbean people, because of that white influence directly on our islands, that they trickle down so many, generations, sometimes up to 5 generations. And there has to be a dynamic in a group of us that will rise up and decide to free everybody from this. And I am one of those people. When did I sign up? Greg said that one day. He's like, I want to see the ink on a contract. Bruh, I still think about that. So I'm gonna read to you my conversation with ChatGPT. This is my rabbit hole of the weekend because this duo that I'm going to mention is now going to just the name or the name like the name or something very close to the name, that is going to breach off a whole bunch of smaller thoughts, which we do call spirit fingers and rabbit holes, because it's going to really make you think like, wow, was there really two of them the whole time? When they get loud, they be getting upset because I be speaking. My thing is I don't really love ChatGPT. I'm still kind of against AI. I don't want to see no robots in the supermarket. Anything that don't got feet, I don't want to see it. And then if you get robots with feet, I don't want to see it. They're a robot. So I usually try to test ChatGPT just learning about the technology more and more. So sometimes I'll just say immediately what's on my mind or create a paragraph of all of the thoughts and sub thoughts that I'm thinking about to now have like a full curated conversation, with ChatGPT. So this is my conversation based upon a rabbit hole that I went down about the Black nobility, the blue star Kachina, the red star Kachina, the yellow sun, and just really understanding what's happening on our planet right now because we're switching an era. And, they say like there were 27,000 year civilizations, 6,000 year civilizations, energy shifts on the planet naturally. And we are in a solar maximus. It makes me want to watch Vin Diesel with the, nighttime shades. I can't remember the movie when they had three sons. I really have to get into that ASAP because there's something on there about that that's very significant, especially if there are really three suns and if they all coming together, when do they eclipse? It's going to get dark on this planet and there is going to be pure mayhem. And this is when some people go get protected and go underground. And then there's other times when people just aren't prepared. So they just give into the masses because they don't believe there is another way. I had recently asked some folk on Facebook, if they had one food item to eat for 7 years every day because they could not go outside into the elements. They were stuck in a container. Every person, if you wanted to survive, you had to stay in the container for 7 years by yourself with one food item. What would it be? And the answers were magnificent. And everyone is in that survival instinct in my community, which I love. Because my thing is like, if you're not in that mindset already, in 2025, then I don't know what to tell you because there has never been an advancement of any civilization as quick as our civilizations have survived. We're going on like people whose bloodlines are going from like 1,000 years back. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think that people are understanding this. And when I really think about it, it in the Bible, it talks about how God treats every day like 1,000 years, I believe. So we have to think about how many civilizations existed that we are knowing of, and how do we do that multiplication? Since we are alive and we're aware of 1,000 year AD, 1,000 years. We're in 2025. We're on day two. Like, and this is what's happening on day two. I'm gonna go to the conversation now. Chat. Enkil, Enkil, and his brother, can you briefly tell me about them? Sure, Enkil, don't know. Sometimes spelled Enkil or Enkila, and Enkilah, and his brother comes from Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles, particularly in The Queen of the Damned. Enkil, I don't know how just let her go, was the king of ancient Egypt and the husband to Akasha, the queen. Together they became the first vampires after a mysterious spirit called Amel entered Akasha's body during an assassination attempt. Enkil, out of loyalty and love, allowed Akasha to turn him into a vampire too. Enkel's role was mostly silent and brooding. After some time, he refused to feed and essentially became like a living statue standing beside Akasha for centuries. As for his brother, Enkel didn't have a brother in a literal biological sense. That was part of the vampire's mythos. However, Enku and Akasha are considered the parents of all vampires. So, in a symbolic way, the vampires they created could be considered their children or relatives. Are you maybe thinking of someone like Cayman, Khayman? He's one of the very early vampires created by Akasha and Enku's bloodline. Would you like me to also tell you about Cayman's just in case? Child, you know I'll be butchering names. Don't let me become a teacher, child. Is it gonna be a remix? It trying to pronounce. So I say, I thought Enki and Enkill. And he's like, ah, I see what you're saying. You're thinking Enki and Enkill, but they are different figures from different traditions. Let's clear it up really quick. Thanks, chat. Enki is from Sumerian mythology, an ancient god of war. Excuse me. Let's go from the beginning. Enki is a Sumerian mythology from that time, an ancient god of water, knowledge, creation, and magic. He's one of the oldest deities from the Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq area. Enki was seen as wise, compassionate God who helped humanity, often associated with cleverness and inventions. Enkill, on the other hand, is a fictional character from Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles, the ancient Egyptian king who became one of the first vampires alongside Akasha. They sound similar because of their names, but they are from completely different worlds. One from real world ancient mythology, Enki, and one from a vampire fantasy fiction, Enkill. Wild, right? That I even did that. Were you thinking more about Enki and maybe another figure connected to him, like his half-brother Enlil? Enlil. Iki, Enki, and Enlil were brothers in Sumerian myths. Let me know. I can explain Enki and Enlil too if you want. Fire emoji. And I'm like, yes, Enlil. Perfect. Here's a quick and clear rundown. Enki, god of water, wisdom, magic, and creation. He loved humanity and often saved them. Enlil, god of air, wind, storm, and authority. He was more strict and powerful, the one who often enforced divine rules. In Sumerian mythology, Enki and Enlil were half brothers. Enlil was sometimes harsh, like when he sent a great flood to wipe out humanity, kind of like the Noah story. Oh, look, a clue. Enki, being softer and more loving toward humans, secretly warned a man Atrahasis or Upna Ishtim, depending on the version, to build a boat to survive. Let's read that again. Enki, being softer and more loving towards humans, secretly warned a man to build a boat to survive. Is definitely giving Noah's story. In so many myths, Enlil is the enforcer of divine order, while Enki is the helper or savior figure. Very interesting for them to be brothers. And one is like, nah, we laying down the law. And the other one's like, well, let me help the people get prepared. Summary vibe. Enlil's strict big brother. Enki, cool, wise, chill younger brother who helps humans behind the scenes. Wow, look, I solved the puzzle. Would you like a super short mid story where they both showed up? It's pretty epic. And I'm like, nah. I was trying to see how it correlated with the movie Sinners. Says, oh, I see where you're headed. That's deep. Fire emoji. In the movie Sinners, I'm guessing you mean The Sinners, aka The Color Rose, or possibly another film, depending which one you mean. There's a lot of symbolic tension between good and evil, law and rebellion, tradition and secret knowledge. If you're connecting it to Enki and Enlil, it totally makes sense in a symbolic way. Enlil would represent the strict authority and the enforcer of rules, judgment, and punishment. kind of like the rigid religious community or strict figures in the story. Thanks, chat. You spilled the beans. Enki would represent hidden wisdom, rebellion through knowledge, and helping the fallen or the oppressed, like characters who question the system or break out of societal norms and expectations. Wow, sounds like free as fuck. In ancient myth, Enki helped humanity survive against the harshness of divine law and Lil's floods. In Sinners, you could argue some characters seek hidden truths and protect themselves from crushing laws of their society. In short, Enlil's judgment, harsh divine punishment. Enki, secret knowledge, rebellion, mercy. That's a very cool parallel you're sensing, rose emoji. Which version of Sinners were you thinking of exactly? The color rose or something even like the seven deadly sins? I can dive deeper depending on which one. So I went to IMDb and paste the link of Sinners with Michael B. Jordan. Ah, now that you've pointed to the 2025 film Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, the connection you're drawn between the mythological figures Enki and Enlil and the film's themes become clearer. And they gave me movie posters, excuse me, four movie posters, one with IMAX and like a couple of other energies, one of Michael B. Jordan himself and of the cast and with the vampire intuitiveness, playing. Really good posters. They all look pretty good. Um, all right, so I'm just gonna read this and then finish it out. Enki and Enlil, a brief recap. Enki in Sumerian mythology, Enki is the god of water, wisdom, and creation. He's known for his benevolence towards humanity, often acting as a protector and provider of knowledge. Enlil, Enki's half-brother, is the god of air and authority. He is more stern and is associated with enforcing divine laws, sometimes bringing about destruction when humanity oversteps its bounds. A clue! Their dynamic represents a balance between mercy and judgment, chaos and order. Sinners 2025 themes and symbolism. In Sinners, Michael B. Jordan portrays twin brothers Smoke and Stack, who returned to their Mississippi hometown in 1932 to start anew by opening a juke joint. The adventure is not just a business endeavor, but a cultural reclamation, providing a space for Black music and community during oppressive Jim Crow era. The film introduces supernatural elements, notably vampires, led by the antagonist Remick. These vampires are symbolic of cultural appropriation and the historical exploitation of Black culture by white society. Drawing parallels, please let the audience go by. Take a bow. A clue, a clue. Sweatboxing. Drawing parallels, Enki, Enlil, and Sinners. Smoke and Stack as Enki and Enlil, the twin brothers, can be seen as embodying aspects of both deities. Smoke, perhaps more cautious and protective, mirrors Enki's wisdom and desire to shield humanity. Stack, possibly more assertive and confrontational, reflects Enlil's authoritative nature. Their combined efforts to establish a safe haven for their community echo the balance between Enki's compassion and Enlil's enforcement for law. Excuse me, order, because that's what they call it here. Oops. Remick as a disrupted divine force. Remick's character, a white vampire drawn to the power of Black music, represents a perversion of divine authority. Unlike Enlil, who enforces cosmic order, Remick seeks to dominate and consume, reflecting a corrupted form of control devoid of balance or benevolence. Music as forbidding knowledge. In the film, blues music is portrayed as a potent force, much like the forbidden knowledge Enki imparts to humanity. Sammy's struggle with his musical calling, opposed by his pastor father, mirrors the tension between divine wisdom and institutional control. Conclusion. While Sinners doesn't directly reference Enki and Enlil, the film's exploration of duality, cultural power, and struggle between oppressive forces and liberated knowledge resonates with the dynamic between two ancient deities. The twin brothers' journey reflects the timeless narrative of seeking balance between compassion and authority, creation and destruction. If you're interested, I can dive a little bit deeper into specific scenes and characters that further illustrate these mythological parallels. So I want you to, capture some of these things here if you're still with me. Peace. It's just so interesting because initially I didn't think I've been talking about Aaliyah just these past couple of days, even just last Sunday when it was 420. And I remember asking the tribe a question and recognizing that that energy doesn't just go away. Sometimes it really does stay with us for a little while. Just a week ago, I was talking about Aaliyah and now thinking about her portraying Queen Akasha in Queen of the Damned. Thinking about that energy that she was invoking is just powerful on its own. Again, goes back to the original part of this, conversation where I was saying you don't know what energy is protecting you or what energy you're invoking that's going to force you to possibly, do you understand? Without saying all of that. But just thinking about the characters and as the conversation with ChatGPT grew from, hey, you might be talking about this, and then it played on my thoughts as I played on its thoughts, and it's giving me the 411 in a unique way. It's teaching me different perspectives about the information that's out in the world, but while getting a deeper understanding. And I'm like, no, that's not really what I'm talking about without getting so formal with it, because I don't care about this robot and going, here's the link of the movie I'm specifically talking about. Now, considering the information that you gave me about light and dark energy, what does that play out? To wake up and to realize that I think his name was Remick. Yes, Remick as a disrupted divine force. Remick's character, a white vampire drawn to the power of black music, represents a perversion of divine authority. Unlike Enlil, who forces cosmic order, Remick seeks to dominate and consume. 400-year curse, reflecting a corrupted form of control devoid of balance or benevolence. Benevolence, let's look it up, Apple. The quality of being well, meaning kindness. So when I say reparations looks like free shelter, free food, and mental health services for 10 years, I fucking mean it because just thinking, having a conversation with my friend about us being our age, single, no children, no husband, not necessarily seeing that as a negative thing, but we were whipped with the Bible. And they tell you don't have children out of wedlock. That is what they tell you. But then in African culture, if you take a woman to a bed, that is your wife. The Bible also teaches the same thing, sure, but the difference is that that's Shorty ain't leaving. This her house. Do you understand? So it's like it's way different here, And I had also posed the question about what's the difference between a white woman and a black woman? And it's like black women were taught to get an education, go to school, go to college, become, as I mentioned, some type of esteemed position that would be equal to white men. And now that we really are these things, the difference between a white woman and a black woman is that we come not only with an education, but oftentimes a masterpiece because we felt like we had to come to the table with an equal quality of life. And the white women that I know, sure, they may have worked, but as soon as they got in a house, a lot of them didn't have to work. A lot of them went to college and married their college mate, and now their families gifted them a home. And their families are gifting them hundreds of thousands of dollars when they first get in their house. The wife has no need to work. She can start her own business just so she's not bored around the house. Like sometimes, sure, they are both providing in those spaces. And again, they came in with wealth together. That is not always the case for Black people. The present day wedding average is $35,000. And I almost did it. I had a $32,000 wedding. And thankfully, I was able to get like a great portion of that back by not getting married. And I always said I always wanted to get married just one time so that I wouldn't get a divorce. And now I'm like, I don't even believe in Western like laws, rules, like all of that. I've really always been that rebellious one to kind of want to go against the grain, but naturally go against the grain, not like I'm being disruptive. Oh, look at me, I'm causing a ruckus. That's like me going into the parking lot, knowing that a movie just got out and smashing all of the windows in the parking lot, where it's broad daylight and I'm obviously going to get fucking caught. Like, do you understand? But before I go too deep into that, just thinking at other moments too, people always look at me crazy because I say I'm against interracial relationships. And I'm like, for one, um, I just don't want the energy or the static that comes with that from my community when I felt that I've advocated so much for my community. And you're directly going against our entire oppression. And while I love so many people who are of white descent, I just cannot. My last take on the movie. I don't know why white people never wanted to live in harmony. Why did you become greedy? Everything was going fine when it was just simple trade, but you wanted to conquer. And as the text says, they just wanted destruction. And when I really think about it, I'm like, United States history is always memorializing war. And it just causes you to think a little deeper. And it makes me, I hope it makes you, but it causes us to think a little bit deeper as to why that is. When you realize that there is actually another side and it's called love, it's not hate. Anyone who wants constant war and destruction and for people to worship them when in reality they're worshiping us, how do you make a group of people oppressed in their minds and then want to also be just like them? It's if you really think about it, it makes no mother loving sense. And I think that people are starting to see the remnants of that come out in the news every day. And all this movie taught me was that everybody cannot worship the sun god Ra. Everybody cannot worship the sun god Ra. Some people don't even have it in their DNA to do it. I'm about to go outside right now because their soul burns up. So the question was posed, do you believe in vampires? And I said, yeah, because I'm a Martian. But the truth of that is there are energy vampires, and that's what this music energy is telling you about. It is a frequency that is unique to our people. It is something that wants to be stolen, is stolen on a daily basis. And this is why Nipsey Hussle is so dope. To me, from the beginning, he made sure masters. Same thing with Rock. Like, I'm sure there are plenty others, but masters from the beginning. It makes me think about how I've self-published my book first. I always wanted to be picked up by Penguin or Random House or something like that, some esteemed, print house. And I was like, I just do this shit myself. Like, are we doing the same thing? Sure, I may not have the clout T, but I don't got the clout T yet. If I really want to make this do what it do. But let's just talk about the basics. It is worth more to be free than to feel oppressed. When people scold me about the Bible or, showing nakedness and I had like a free as fuck t-shirt on with my head wrapped and I was talking about a miscarriage that I had and the energy of feeling pure and womanly and in my raw state with a free as fuck shirt on and covering up my feminine parts. You could see some cellulite though, and this person is giving me a whole full-on dissertation about African spirituality and how we're supposed to cover up as women and nakedness is, a sin. And I'm like, great. But how I was raised, I'm fully aware of that. And the purpose that I came for, I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to get anybody attention to give them a message. And sure, you're gonna look at me like that sounds crazy. But if I am here to save souls from oppression, I gotta sometimes meet you in the trenches. Salute. It's not a big deal because I'm still gonna come out untouched. Like, homeboy. Everybody can't worship the sun god Ra. And sometimes when you're a little bit free and you have that mindset, like, man, I could walk this earth for the rest of my life and blend in with society, and no one will ever know that I'm an NG vampire. And something that was so interesting about it, with the guitar situation, you know, who's pouring energy into your equipment once again? Who did you get that earring from, that necklace from, that watch that you wear all the time, that, bracelet, ring, whatever. You think about all that kind of stuff, and it just really, really makes you think like, do I want to wear it in the first place? That happened to me. I put on my mother's jewelry and she cursed me out because I didn't ask her, and this was like 3 years ago. And she said I stole from her. And I was just really thinking about it like, damn, I was hyped to rock this shit. It was like onyx with like gold pieces in between. Shit was fly. And all I could think about was, wow, I'm gonna be able to wear my mother's jewelry. She's aging. This would be an honor to do this. And that's not how she perceived it. And maybe I should have asked. But at the same time, you should have been like, you was in my drawer looking for my stuff. What you was looking for? Why you was in my stuff? I was cleaning the house and just thought, hey, this is my mom jewelry. It's sitting in the bag, not doing anything. Let me put it on then. That's traditions. And maybe she was saving me from some energy that I don't know, but I didn't take it that way. In fact, I felt the lowest that I could have ever felt in a while. She knows why. I know why. And, later on, it made me think about some things and it made me consider traditions and it made me think about how if you're not always following traditions, are you really living? Is there a time and a place for traditions? I feel like when it comes to us sitting at the table eating dinner with our family, our children, our loved ones. I think about maybe the way we may cook those meals, that could be a form of tradition, or how I court my wife and I make sure that we always go at least on 2 dates a month. That could generate a tradition. My cousin, styles her and her family in different Easter outfits for like 14, 15 years, something like that. That's a tradition. Do you understand? Like, tradition can be whatever you deem it to be, but again, there's a time and a place for tradition. We need to get out of the mindset of saving all of these people who don't deserve to be saved. Because right now, all we're doing is continuing that tradition. We need to break free from those shackles mentally, physically, spiritually, more importantly. I read my Bible, but I also don't for years and months and days and however you may want to call it. It's comforting, yes. Sometimes you're like, shit, let me just put this weight on somebody. Let me read this verse because somehow it's always on time. It's just what it do. It's fucking magic. Do you understand what I'm saying? It knows to give you something that you need that's important to permeate your soul. And I think that when we get to the point of this all, we have to remember that you can break free from those shackles. You don't have to be Black and Christian or Southern Baptist or Catholic or Jewish, Buddhist. There's other faiths, but those are the main ones that come to me. You don't have to. I worship one God. I don't need an intercessor. I do not need an intercessor for me to worship God. Only I know what God is. My lifestyle, my lessons, my walk has gotten me to where I am because of that same divine power. So everybody's talking about, oh, this sky daddy. It's not about a sky daddy. It's about, can you take yourself out of this physical avatar to put yourself up to be sky daddy? Is how my sky daddy look. Can you take your energy and propel it out of your soul? And that's really what death is. You cannot be afraid to walk on that path. Too many people are dredged in fear and have zero idea on how to live. And that's the reason why this size society is the way that it is. And this is why it works. People need to be controlled, but there is always duality. And there is always an opportunity to become free as fuck. Always. There's always another side of the coin. There's always a front and a back. There's always a black and a white. There's always another option. It is up to you to decide which one are you going to take and how is it going to stimulate you. Are you going to be happy with being a sheep or and lecturing other grown adults about their life? Boy, if I was a hacker and still crazy, I would pull up to wherever you live in the United States of America, possibly internationally, if the flight was a decent price, and do some alphabet boy shit. Like, what'd you say, Twitter fingers? Y'all gotta be careful on these internet streets, my guy. It's way too much information accessible at your fingertips to go sleepy bye-bye. Respectfully, this is for entertainment purposes only. Spirit fingers. Peace.